You have completed the written exam process for the Austin Fire Department and have been scheduled for the structured oral process. The following information will give you more information of what to expect at this portion of the testing process. The structured oral process consists of a series of hypothetical situations, followed by questions that assess the dimensions necessary for successful performance as an entry-level firefighter in the Austin Fire Department. Your response to each question will be video recorded. Your answers will be reviewed and rated by a panel of trained assessors at a later date. Steps in the process. You have been assigned a specific date and time for your SOP. You should be prepared to arrive early and allow ample time to park and walk from the parking lot to the registration line. Those who are not in line at the appointed time will not be allowed to register. Do not bring cell phones, cameras, pagers or other electronic devices, such as smartwatches or tablets, to the SOP. These devices will not be allowed in the building. You will need a valid photo ID to check in prior to the SOP. After check-in, you will wait in a holding area. Then you will be escorted to a testing room where you will watch a brief orientation via a laptop. During this brief orientation, you will be read the exercise dimensions and definitions. These dimensions are what you will be evaluated on for this process. You also must sign a confidentiality agreement. This agreement will be given to your test proctor once you have completed the exercise. Once the orientation ends, the assessment exercise will begin. You will be given 3 hypothetical scenarios. For each scenario, you will be asked the question, what would you do and why? Each scenario and question will be read aloud, and you will be provided a printed copy as well so that you may follow along. You will have 4 minutes to orally respond to each question. You can use as much or as little of your allotted time period as you choose. However, if you have not completed your oral response in the allotted time period, you must stop and move on to the next scenario. Your response to each question is being video recorded. It is natural to be nervous. Many candidates have found the following suggestions to be helpful, but you must decide for yourself what would be helpful for you. Try to look at the laptop camera, speak clearly and loudly enough to be heard, do not speak softly. Many people find that watching themselves in a mirror or video recording themselves while they practice answering questions gives them an idea of how they will look on camera. Listen carefully to each scenario and its questions and formulate an organized, comprehensive response. Answer the question that is asked. Avoid rambling on about unrelated issues or, the opposite, providing answers that are too short and do not convey your knowledge on the subject. Remember, these are just suggestions that other candidates have found helpful. However, ultimately, you must decide what is best for you. When you exit the room, you will be required to leave behind the printed exercise material and any notes you may have prepared during the SOP. You will also ensure that your confidentiality agreement is left with the test proctor. After the exercise, you will be escorted to a holding room and will be required to stay at the testing site until everyone else in your group has completed their assessment exercise. Be prepared to be on site for 4 to 5 hours. Your video recorded responses will be rated by a panel of assessors after your SOP. The following are dimensions for which you will be assessed in the structured oral process. Problem identification and analysis. The ability to quickly identify a problem and to analyze it. To notice details or phenomena, to sort out pertinent information. To foresee the consequences of various alternatives. The ability to obtain relevant information from available information and screen out less essential details. The ability to use data and related information in order to evaluate a problem. The ability to logically interpret information in order to solve problems. Decision-making. The ability to make sound decisions promptly on difficult problems. The exercise of judgment and consideration of available information. The willingness to make a decision when required. Basically, the ability to use all information provided in order to take the most appropriate action and exhibit a willingness to make decisions when necessary. Teamwork. The attribute that permits an individual to work in collaboration with a group of people to achieve a common goal or pursue a mission. It invokes the concept of being able to work with others in a spirit of cooperation, even under trying or difficult conditions. Teamwork includes the ability to overcome or disregard any personal conflicts with other members of a group in order to preserve the cohesiveness and effectiveness of the group itself. To a certain extent, it contemplates a commitment, when necessary, to put the interests of the group ahead of the personal ambitions or desires of the person. Oral communication. The ability to express ideas clearly, concisely, and effectively in oral form. To listen to others attentively and with comprehension. The ability to speak clearly, be easy to follow, display self-assurance, and appear unflustered.
The following are the exact instructions you will receive on test day. This is the structured oral process. You should have 4 consecutively numbered pages beginning with this page. Please take a moment and count your pages. If you do not have 4 consecutively numbered pages, please inform a monitor. You will be asked to respond to 3 scenarios. Once a scenario has been read, you will have a maximum of 4 minutes to respond to the question for the scenario. You will present your response to each scenario to a laptop webcam. Your performance on this exercise will also be video recorded. You may use some of the 4-minute period to consider your response and prepare before you begin talking. However, you only have a maximum of 4 minutes for each scenario. Should you complete your response before the 4-minute time limit elapses, you may say, "That concludes my response." You will then be directed to the next scenario. You may not look ahead to the next scenario until you are directed to turn the page by the monitor. Once the 4-minute period is over for any scenario, you may not go back to that scenario. Should you use the full 4-minute time period, the monitor will stop you by indicating time is up. The monitor will then direct you to move on to the next scenario. You may write on the candidate packet or take notes on the scratch paper that is provided. If you complete your response to the 3rd scenario before the 4-minute time limit elapses, you may exit the room and stand or sit outside the door and wait for a monitor to escort you. It is important that you leave any notes you made on the table. You may not speak to other candidates until you are told you may do so.